Okay, good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you all. I know everybody's getting ready for the holidays here. Or maybe you're already into the holidays and taking vacation, but glad to see so many people joining us this morning. So a couple of things. First of all, as always, want to thank our sponsors. Mauricio, I don't know if you're online yet, Care First Health Plan, the Satellite Broadcasters Association. Steve Hill, who is the executive director, had been joining us pretty regularly, and he tells me that he has a conflicting meeting every Monday morning, and so haven't seen him for a while. And Valley of the Sun, Melissa, thank you, and Kajit, thank you guys for your support. Again, those of you who are not sponsors yet, we're going to be looking for sponsors for next year, so we encourage you to think about participating. Just the schedule for the holidays. That excuse me. Of course, we're meeting today. Next Monday, we are meeting on the 20th, but it's going to be a very informal meeting. For those of you who know that we have been doing our kibitzing, networking and kibitzing with colleagues after our meetings. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's an informal gathering. So after our formal meeting is over, people who choose to stay online and want to share information, have questions, need some help with resources, participate in our kibitzing with colleagues. And so our next Monday on the 20th, that meeting is going to be devoted just to that. I think it'll be a fun opportunity. Encourage you all to be there, but because it is the holidays, people on vacation, decided to keep it a fairly different kind of a format and informal. So just wanted to remind you about that. Again, kibitzing with colleagues afterwards. I hope you'll join us. As you know, you can download the task force reports each week, as well as the presentations and the recordings of the meeting. So those are all available to you on a regular basis. And again, I want to remind you that we do have an updates, events and updates page. And I did do a lot of updates this past week. And we'll try to include most, if not all, of the funding sources that are available. I included, Mark, you did a great job of summarizing a lot of the federal funding opportunities that are coming up. And that is available on that page, and a lot of other information and resources. So I encourage you to check that out every week. It'd be a good way to keep track of what's going on. And with that, want to just again remind you that we do have the listing of people who are participating in the task force. And again, I will remind you that not everybody is in that list, only those people who have taken the time to complete our Google form. If you have not done so, strongly encourage you to do that, so we make sure that we have your contact information. With that, before we jump into the updates, just a quick note, and then you'll hear more about this later, but Sophia is going to introduce Kelly Crucy. Is that how you pronounce your name, Kelly?
Yes, you said it perfectly. Thank you.
Good. Who is the new program manager for the new Office of Digital Teaching and Learning with the Arizona Department of Education. So you're going to hear just a quick update from her in just a little while. So we're pleased to have her join us this morning. With that, we're going to jump into our federal and state updates, and kicking it off. Jeff, are you online? Didn't see you yet, but are you there?
Jeff is there. He's on mute.
Yeah, I'm here. I can't seem to get rid of the mute. Yeah, just
Morning, Jeff.
really quick things. Number one, our $100 million Arizona Broadband Development Grant. The date is January 31st. Hopefully everybody knows that by now. I've been sending out multiple emails. If you got more than one from me, I apologize. Just wanted to make sure people knew that date will not be pushed. So please do not ask for more time. If your organization is involved in RFP, some sort of a vendor selection process, I highly encourage you to get that done because that date will not change. There will be other funding opportunities in 2022 from what I can tell, based on a couple groups I'm involved with. That being said, if you want to be part of this one, please, please, please get this done by the 31st of January.
Jeff, if I can interrupt for a second, can you just remind people what the focus of that grant is?
The focus of the grant is primarily last mile service. We're receiving federal funding for this, so there are some guardrails around what we can use the money for. So, don't get me wrong, I think middle mile is great, and I think that incorporated with a last mile solution, it's an interesting way to look at this, but please look at last mile solutions first. There are some interesting middle mile stuff coming down the pipeline, particularly with the IIJA, where there's $1 billion set aside specifically for middle mile. But the focus of this grant really is on the last mile solution, providing service to the end user. So please remember that.
Okay.
Okay, so second up, our state middle mile strategic plan. The data on that, it's complete, is going to be pushed until the first week of January. Reason being, people are taking off on vacation, different things, and they want to make sure that everyone's aware of what we're doing and get it out. That is exclusive from the grant. There's nothing in the middle mile plan that really would affect how you apply for the grant, so please don't worry about that. I think you'll find it's interesting. KPMG helped us with this. They did a good job. We found some really interesting things around the number of unserved and underserved folks in our state that are within a 5-mile radius of our highways, or interstate highways. It's over 80%. We also found out certain highways that we thought were well served were not. And this is something that we're definitely discussing. So please do stay tuned on that.
Jeff, will you be able to do an overview of that at one of our meetings in early January?
Yes, absolutely. And we're planning on doing that. Lastly, we do have a job record out for the Assistant State Broadband Director. The focus with that job is going to be on grants administration, both state and federal, as well as some of the digital equity functions that we're working through. So if your background is that, maybe you're not an EE engineer, but you have background in that, that's really where we need help right now. So I would highly encourage you to apply. The applications are on Indeed. And if anybody needs one, I'll be happy to send that to them. We want to make sure we have somebody who has more expertise on that side of the house, because as you can imagine, with the federal funds we have and the ones that are coming, the compliance side of what we're doing is a mountain of paperwork. It's a mountain of work. And I am certainly one person and I can do the best I can, but we need somebody who's an expert in these areas. So if you're interested, please do apply.
Jeff, is there a deadline for applying for that job?
You know what, we're gonna keep it open until we find the person we want, Steve.
Okay.
So that's all I had for today. Thanks.
Great. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on. Arizona State Library Archives and Public Records, Mala, E-rate Administrator for Public Libraries.
Thank you. I wanted to share with you the happy news that FCC Chair Jessica Rosen-Warcel has been confirmed to be the chair of FCC. She's the first woman to permanently chair the agency. She was an acting chair so far, and really happy that she has been confirmed. She is a fighter to close the digital divide and to bring Americans into today's digital world, digital ecosystem. So we're really happy that she has been confirmed. The second nomination was Gigi Sohn, and she's an American politician and lawyer and has come into the limelight for some of her controversial opinions. So she's still not been confirmed, and I think they will push it to January if they can. The Republicans are working hard to see if they can to interview people who know her and try to find out more information about her, and let us see what happens. E-rate information, as far as it goes, it's ironic that last week, USAC site was down due to security breach, and we still haven't got updates on the commitments that have been made. And I really don't want to say this is a good thing that it has happened to them, but because of that, it has drawn attention to what we've been always fighting for, to have some of the security software become eligible for E-rate reimbursement. This really puts that issue in the limelight. With the new FCC is still working on the rulemaking, notice of proposed rulemaking for the bidding portal. They wanted to have a different bidding portal as compared to what we have right now. Currently, the E-rate application portal, you just upload your final selection, vendor selection, and if they ask questions about how you came about selecting that vendor, it is done during the review process. But the new bidding portal that they want every single bidder to put their bids on that portal, and everything, including how you select your vendor, the bid matrix, what you did to get it on the agenda for the proposal for selection, are all going to be out and transparent. And SECA is fighting this. SECA is the State E-Rate Coordinators Alliance. Shelby also is fighting this, saying that it would mean more scrutiny, more delays, more challenges and conflicts with the local procurement rules, especially and things like random bots, promotion, and all that would still go on to the site. It would also burden USAC in having to maintain all this information for 10 years, which is what their regulations say. So let's see what comes of it next year. FCC has a public notice, DA 21-1453, out for is seeking comments on the implementation of the new ECF, Affordable Connectivity Program, that was established by the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And E-Rate Central, as well as Shelby, has commented
Mala,
on
can I
this.
ask you a question about that? Wasn't the
Yes.
ECF not included in the IIJA? It's part of a little bit of funding in that other one, Build Better.
The funding for ECF, as it stands today, ends on December 31st. That means all applicants that apply before December 31st will go under the ECF rules. The new rules are supposed to come into effect from the 1st of January. Again, I'm not 100% sure that that's going to happen because because of FCC's public notice that is still out.
So is this for the existing funds, you mean?
No, for the new one, for the Affordable Connectivity Program, for the new version of it.
I'm a little confused. Like, are you talking about the ECF or the Affordable Connectivity Program?
Sorry. Yes, you're rightly confused. I started saying ECF and then went on to EBB. Yes, it is for the EBB program, the Affordable Connectivity Program.
Okay.
That's what I meant. Sorry if I said ECF. It's for the new, yeah.
Quick question. I was forwarded something from the governor's office. There was an article that came out. There's a lot of fraud with the EBB program. And we were one of the states that was named. Have you seen any visibility to that at all?
I haven't seen any information, more detailed information, except what you have seen, Jeff. But there is a lot of vendor specific vendor specific, what should I say, promotion going on. So many of the devices that have been given to the EBB applicants are kind of proprietary and to just one vendor. And I don't want to name any vendor, but as an example, I'm saying it could be a T-Mobile device, and it is then proprietary T-Mobile device, and it's very difficult to get someone used to a device and then switch to a different device, especially the older folks. And some of that is also being quoted as fraud and abuse of the system.
Okay.
I wouldn't call it fraud. It's more like an abuse of the system, because once you get an 80-year-old hooked onto a particular device, it's very difficult to get them to any other device.
Right.
So they want it to be neutral. They want the service to be neutral. So I'm hoping that that will, rectify itself with the new ACP rules.
I hope that's it. I mean, my concern was it sounded like, I don't know if it was school districts or somebody was behind some of this stuff, that there were more devices than there were students in some districts, and that might be other parts of the country. They didn't specify, but I mean, obviously we don't have any stewardship over that program, but I'm a big believer in that program. So hopefully people aren't abusing it. So I was just curious what you had heard.
I'm hoping that you're right, because the schools are giving the devices to the students under the ECF program. The devices given under the EBB program is not meant for school kids that are in school. It is mainly for adults that are not in school and who do not have adequate access at home. So I think with the new ACP rules, the amount of help that each household is being given is also reduced. So hopefully that would correct itself. People who can't afford more, it will be only $30 instead of the $50 that is now being subsidized. So hopefully that will bring some of this down. But like you, I'm also hoping that this good program is not marred by abuse.
Right. I mean, it's been a phenomenal program for Arizona, and we need to clean it up, but don't do away with it, because I've seen that happen too, where there's just so much abuse that they pull or redirect the funding to different areas. So anyway, thanks. That's all I needed.
That's it. And again, this last week we had between 4,500 to 4,800. I don't have the exact numbers. Well, here it is. The total number of households that received funding this up till now that have been committed are 202,398, 202,000 households in Arizona that have signed up since the inception of the program. There is still a lot of money available in the program, and all that will be moved over to the new ACP program.
Excuse me, real quick, Jeff, could you send me that article? This is Cindy. I'd be curious to hear what I work a lot with EBB, and I'd be curious to hear what the specifics are of the things that they're talking about.
Yeah, I saw that article somewhere too.
Post it real quick to the chat here. No problem.
Thanks so much.
Jeff, Arizona Rural Schools would be really interested in that. So we can determine is the issue ordering more devices than you have people to receive them, or is the issue schools are improperly using this money to supply devices to students rather than community members? That's the kind of detail that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
This is not a program for schools to supply devices. This is more a direct vendor to household. So the schools and school districts committing any fraud in this case is, I don't think, in question at all.
Well, yeah, that may be the reality, Mala, but you know how people get. So it would be really nice to know as of the details as possible as we see if this scandal or this becomes a scandal. Or an
Yes,
issue.
whatever you may call it, but
Yes.
in any case, E-Rate Central, Shelby, and others are reacting to it by saying that FCC should set minimum standards for devices and request that, and let vendors know that a smartphone is not adequate device for school, for any kind of work serious work that needs to be done. So let's see what comes of it. It has been already brought to light to FCC, so we'll wait and see what comments FCC has to make in this.
The latest link I just posted into the chat on page 3, there's a reference to an Arizona. There's 2 references to Arizona.
Let me check. I haven't.
Okay,
Is that
thank you.
the Inspector General article, brief, Paul?
I believe so.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
It was issued November 22nd.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Yep.
I hadn't seen
It's
that
pretty-
article. Yeah.
It's fairly, there's more information in that one than the first link I posted, which is just a straight, like a press release.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mala, are you done?
One moment, let me just see if there's anything else I need to talk about. No, I'm back to you, Steve.
Okay, Holly, are you online?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so Holly is the State Librarian and Director of Library Services, Archives, and Public Records. Do you have anything, Holly, that you want to add?
No, I don't. Thank you, Steve.
Okay, and again, Holly, I just want to thank you as we close out this year for all the work that your department does. You guys do an awesome job. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for all that you do to bring people together. It's been very helpful to have this network.
Great. And Nicole, I believe you're online. Do you want to add anything?
Good morning. No, not at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. I don't think Janet is online this morning. But just quickly, and I'm sure she would have said this if she was here, that we got some sad news this past week that Dr. Ron Weinstein, who was the founder of the Arizona Telemedicine Program and has been an ongoing champion, died last week. So we're certainly sad to hear that.
So sad, yeah.
Okay, moving on. Arizona Department of Education. So we have some interesting stuff happening today. Sophia, before you introduce Kelly, do you have anything else that you need to talk about?
We'll give Kelly all the time.
Okay. Mylan, I don't think you're online, are you? Okay, if not, we're going to do a little bit of a departure this morning, and Sophia is going to introduce Kelly Crucy, who is the program manager for the new Office of Digital Teaching and Learning. And you may recall that we had a presentation about that office a few weeks ago, but Kelly is new, and I had a great opportunity to talk with her and Sophia. And we want to continue to explore ways that this task force can collaborate and support that office. And so with that, Sophia, you want to introduce Kelly, please?
Sure, thanks, Steve. Good morning, everyone. It is good to see you all again this early Monday morning. I am excited to introduce my colleague, the program manager for the Office of Digital Teaching and Learning, Kelly Crucy. You heard from my colleagues, Karina Jones and our interim CIO, Chris Richardson, about this office a few weeks ago, and you've heard my updates about our assessment. Kelly is really managing the assessment in this program now, so I'm going to turn it over to her to do a further introduction. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, Steve, for having me. It's great to be in this group this morning, and hopefully I'll be invited to continue. So my name is Kelly. I am new to the Department of Education. I have been here officially 1 month. And I immediately jumped in with this assessment. And so it sounds as though you all have been brought up to speed on what's happening. I'll do a very quick recap. We are the Office of Digital Teaching and Learning, which is the brainchild of the technology task force that was commissioned by Superintendent Hoffman out of COVID and during COVID. And the task force suggested that the state needs an office to have awareness and bring us forward in the space of digital teaching and learning. And so Karina and Chris have been very instrumental in all of this and really have put this office together. And now I have been brought in to help keep it moving forward. And right now our main goal is this assessment. And some of you may have heard of this. And actually I'm going to put in the chat right now a link to our dashboard. So if you click on that link, it takes you to our website and it shows you our progress with this dashboard. And I share this intentionally. So this assessment closes this Wednesday at 11:59 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And what we are trying to do with assessment is get every school district and charter represented in this assessment. And this assessment is collecting all kinds of information. We're collecting details about digital teaching and learning and how this is happening across the state. So, you know, we're talking about the digital divide here as well. And so we want to collect all the information from all charters, from districts at the system-wide level or the district level. And we want to know things like the student device ratio, how many students, you know, have devices, what kind of LMSs are being used, you know, what are the biggest struggles and issues for the students, and what training is provided. So we want to collect information for teachers and staff, but also for students. So we've broken the assessment into two areas, academics and technology. And so again, if you take a look at that dashboard, it shows you, if you've pulled that up on your screen, you can see we've got a map there. And that map shows you all the counties. And my big goal coming into this was to make sure that every county is represented. And we have almost done that. So you can see that we've got one that we're working with, and that's Greenlee County, and they are actually completing that as we speak. So every county is represented. I would love to see more representation. And what I mean by that is getting more districts and charters to complete that. So again, this closes in 2 days, and my team and our work is cut out for us as far as we're trying to make phone calls, make visits, whatever we can do to get people to complete the assessment. And it takes about, you know, anywhere from 40 minutes to an hour to complete that. And we have been emailing, calling, we're doing really what we can to shake the trees and make sure that we do have that representation. So I bring that to this group. I know that we've got several people who are affiliated with schools, and you have networks, and this is a great thing to remind people of. And we have been really trying to get the word out everywhere. I'm pleased that we've got representation in every county, but again, I'm looking for more. And then once this closes, which is this Wednesday, what we'll do from there is then take this information and really sort it, sift it, and analyze it so that in February we can publish the next steps. What does this mean? What are we doing with this information? And the goal of this office is to be in a consultative role so that we can provide information and resources and connect everyone. So similar to what you all are doing in this group, we are trying to create a network and create communities of practice and really provide more resources toward the schools so that they have what they need. And ultimately our ultimate goal is student success. So we want to make sure that the schools and the charters have what they need to be successful. So again, it closes this Wednesday, and then we get to go through all of that data. We will publish the data in February. So February 22 is when we'll publish that. And then the fun work begins as far as, you know, networking and resources and bringing all of this together so that we can provide almost vetted resources for our schools to make sure that they've got what they need to be more successful with digital teaching and learning. And so again, I've got that website in there, take a look, but I do want to know if anybody has questions, or Steve, if you have questions or details I'm not sharing. I'm going to check the chat for any questions as well.
Okay, anybody have questions or comments for Kelly?
I can see there is, it says, are you collecting during and post-COVID approaches, because I'm hearing that COVID-19 large numbers of devices were issued. So what we are doing right now is collecting numbers as they are now. For instance, what is the ratio? What's being used now? It is not necessarily pre and post, it is present.
Yeah, hi, this is Paul.
Paul.
The reason why I asked that question is because with the large number of devices that were issued to students during the COVID period, especially while people were like 100% remote, now as schools return back to their status quo operation, having the ratio is it's a good baseline number. But what I'm also hearing is that it's very dependent upon schools. They're deciding whether or not they're actually sending devices home now or not. And so it can be district-based, it can be school-based, but I'm also starting to hear that there's a rolling back occurring. And that rollback actually will just further expand the digital divide and increase the digital. So we had this improvement, and now we potentially could be seeing a rollback. And I know that for those of us, like many of us on this call have been in this industry for 20, 30 years or more in some cases, right? It's like we're turning back the clock. And so some of the gains that we did see with digital resources, digital equity, device use could be eroded rather rapidly. But if we're not collecting that data, we won't know that, because it looks like it's getting down to the school level. Schools are making individual decisions. So that's why I asked the question. Device ratio is great. So, I mean, that's a baseline. But knowing what people are actually doing now and their approach, I think that's going to be a really telling piece, if we can find that out.
Right.
Yeah.
And Paul, so that's go ahead, Sophia.
So the reason that we're doing the survey now and closing it when we are, even though it's the holidays and maybe not the best time to be doing it, is because the survey is going to be annual. And we're going to do it again next year, probably even earlier than we did it this year, so that we can start to get people used to doing sharing this data. And the reason what you're talking about is the exact reason we need this data. We need to see where schools are and what they're doing. I have actually heard the same thing you're hearing. And starting to look at this data and where schools are, because a school rolling back one-to-one would tell me they weren't ready to be at one-to-one to begin with. That's why it didn't stick. And that's the kind of thing we need to know, so we can provide them those resources at the state to make sure we're getting to where we can move forward, to where all schools are ready to move forward, not just the ones who are maybe the most fortunate or able to hire the best tech people. And that really is kind of the point of having some of this data and collecting it year over year, so we can, when we see the trend of people rolling it back, because like I said, I've heard the same thing, that we can be like, oh, okay, so they weren't ready for one-to-one, so why weren't they ready? What infrastructure did they need to fill that gap? Because I completely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, it goes back to the research of the 1980s and 1990s about the haves and have-nots. And so, yeah, I would agree. I mean, I'm right there with you. Yeah, I see it too. And I hear the same conversations. Those that weren't prepared are probably still not prepared because they haven't had the training. So whatever we can do to help with that, that's something I think we collectively need to work on. Otherwise, we will see that rollback continue. And sometimes once these things get started, I hate to say it, sometimes they're very difficult to stop.
And I'm hoping some of the other data will show us, like, oh, maybe this is why they rolled it back, or you know what I mean? Like we'll see some other trend in the data that will be able to help us make other decisions and changes.
Can I ask, this is Lori, I have a question. What's the mechanism being used to gather the data?
We're using Qualtrics.
Okay, so are they is Qualtrics emailing them, or?
Yes, so sorry, Qualtrics, an online program, and they are emailed through Qualtrics, and it is all personalized and individualized. So it's attached to the LEA ID number. So if I receive an email as a superintendent, I designate who's going to fill out the technology and who will do the academic, and it goes to them specifically so we can track it back to that specific LEA ID number.
Got it.
And it is electronic. And we have had one person send us a PDF version, which is fine. We can manually input. I mean, I'll take the information however I can get it, because just as Paul and Sophia are talking about, this is establishing our baseline. And we want to be able to keep building on this and moving forward and continually learn and establish, where the gaps are and how we can help fill those.
I'm just wondering if we have carriers that have access to customer emails, phone numbers, more direct information. I don't know if that was something that would help to get the word out on the urgency of getting the information back.
You cut out there, so I missed part of what you said.
I'm just wondering if there's another mechanism we could use to reach these people, to get them aware of the email that's coming to them or the other information that's coming to them, phone calls, things like that.
It's direct to schools, not consumers. The Department of Education doesn't work with like individual citizens. We just work with schools.
Right. Yeah, what I'm saying is that many of the carriers have relationships with these schools. If you're not getting the response you need, there may be another means of reaching the folks to get them, where they get a lot of emails.
They do, yes.
And so it may be relegated to their junk drawer if they haven't been made aware that it's coming to them.
Absolutely. All right. So we have learned that ourselves. I've found out that superintendents, get upwards of 200 emails a day. So that's a great suggestion as well. So I'm writing down your name, Lori. Maybe I'll follow up with you. All right. Let me check through the chat questions here.
Kelly, just for
yes.
a second here. This is John Kelly, one of the many members of this task force who was on the superintendent's task force. As to Qualtrics, I think the fun part that I'm looking forward to seeing is sort of the back end reporting that you can get out of that tool. I've had a chance to dive into it a little bit, and I think it's going to be very interesting for this group once you've gotten your arms around that data to be able to show, by demographics, by locations, by different things, because I think you're going to have a lot of tools to take care of your challenges. So good work.
Great. Thank you.
So Kelly,
right.
this is Steve. So
Yeah.
I had a couple of questions and maybe I have a good memory, just a little short. So I know we covered a lot of things when you and I had a conversation, but are we collecting information about where technical support is available, how the districts are helping students with adoption of devices? So it's, as we know, it's not just the devices. And then I know that you're going to be doing a lot more with training teachers and so forth. But I don't know if you want to talk about that briefly.
Yes, so we do ask what kind of support they have in place. Is there a help desk? What type of training is available? How often the training and the support is available? We're really trying to establish that baseline. And I feel like I forgot the other part of the question. So we are collecting that information. We're also trying to get details as far as goals and where they planned, where districts and charters are planning to move forward, or if they have those plans in place. So again, trying to establish where everyone is so that we can help identify where those gaps are and put them in touch with communities of practice or resources to establish those goals and help reach those goals as well. Steve, I saw another question in the chat about devices and if they are collected at the end of the school year. And I think that varies depending on the school. And we are collecting information as far as, again, what the ratio is, what types of devices they are. And I think that we're asking as well as far as, how those are collected and what sort of infrastructure they have to do that, because that in itself, tracking who has what and when it comes back and is it updated, that is a huge task, as everyone knows as well. Again, keeping my eye on this chat. Is there not a tech leaders directory? To my knowledge, there is not. And so this, again, Paul, we are learning there are gaps and it just varies across the state. But again, these are things I think that are needed and will be useful. And our goal is to create and update our contacts as far as who we know is out there and create contact lists and information so that we have it more accessible.
Okay, so we need to move on, but
Okay.
when I met with Kelly, that I made it clear that we are very interested in collaborating with them, supporting them, and we'll have a better idea and further discussion once they get their survey results back and we hit the new year.
Yep.
Any other quick questions or comments before we move on?
I do want to say thank you. I'm not trying to cut anyone off, but even the questions in the chat or the questions you all have asked, you bring up great points. And these are things for us to keep our eyes on. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Sophia, for helping to field answers as well. But mostly thank you to the group for having me. And Steve, I appreciate it. I'll turn it back to you.
Sounds great. Thanks, Kelly. Look forward to collaborating with you in the future. Moving on, I don't believe, Leah, are you online this morning? Leah, as you know, is chair of the Arizona Corporation Commission, and we will, after the first of the year, have a discussion session, not in this meeting, but a separate session, because the Corporation Commission is going to, at some point next year, have a discussion about some changes to the Arizona Universal Service Fund. And Leah is looking to us to make some recommendations about how we think we would like to see that funding being used. So we'll be having some continuing discussion with Leah and to look at that whole issue after the first of the year. Moving on, Derek, you have anything with the Sun Corridor Network? Are you online?
Derek posted that he was having to drop off at 8 and had little to add.
Okay, I missed that. And Wes, are you still there or are you gone? I think Wes had to leave too.
I might be able to, if you're asking about the final mile project, I might be able to help with that.
Okay, Roy, you want to give us a quickie update, please?
Yeah, so we did come to an agreement.
Excuse me, Roy, you want to tell people who you are?
Oh, I apologize. I'm with Triad Wireless. We won the first five bids for the final mile project in around Arizona. So the first one, Paloma, is already completed. There's users are online. I think we've hit 50%.
Rory, which, can you, what's the
sorry.
name of the one that's completed again? Can you make that?
Paloma.
How do you spell that?
Paloma.
Okay, so Paloma School District is completed and operational?
Yes. Yeah, I believe we've installed everybody except one user, and we're waiting for an SLA agreement from the school, as that user happens to be behind some barns, and we need to get a different angle shot to him. And as soon as the contract comes from the school, the SLA is site lease agreement, which allows us to put a small relay antenna up on the school. We'll have all of them completed. So
you
go
said,
ahead, I'm sorry.
I think you said last time all of them would be completed by January 15th, you expect, is that right?
Yeah, let's go through these one at a time, because we were delayed. The project got delayed waiting for the legal contracts allowing us to work on the school properties. We just got PIMA's, I think about a week and a half ago. And we learned on Friday that the circuit that we ordered from Sparklight, even though the order was submitted in October, the salesperson apparently forgot to file the contract. So they're trying to escalate that right now. As soon as they give us the okay, we'll be heading out there. Rimrock, we've come to agreements with the local carrier up there. We're actually going to purchase them. And so we're still targeting the January 15th schedule. But Holbrook and Chevron Butte, the Holbrook equipment is still on its way in. We're getting hit with a supply chain issue in that particular area, but we expect to have it in about 10 days. It's going to be close. January 15th is going to be close. Chevron Butte, we believe we've come to an agreement with ComNet, so we're starting on that project today. Instead of building 2 towers, we may only have to build 1. But that equipment is absolutely not going to get here until mid-January. It's newer technology to penetrate those trees. So that kind of should give you the full summary there. Basically, we expect to get 4 out of 5 of these done by the 15th. And, roughly. And then the other one should be done by the 1st. It's between the 1st and the 15th of February. assuming no weather issues. Chef, you're on mute.
Okay. Thanks, Rory. Any quick questions? Any other questions for Rory before we move on? Okay, I think that's it. So I apologize. Is there anybody who's new to us today? Obviously, besides Kelly, that's joining us for the first time this morning. Okay, Mark, you want to do a quickie about the document that you've put together with the funding resources?
Sure. Can you let me share my screen?
Sure. And just so you know, Mark, that at least the original document you sent, I have posted that.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Great.
Okay.
I made about a half a dozen changes in this past week, but I do have some great breaking news from USDA about more funding opportunities next year that really hasn't yet been in the press. So this is a single page. There's 8 bullets. Each one represents a major federal infrastructure funding, many of which will flow through the states. And I didn't try to cover here, for the sake of sanity and what was covered, all the digital equity programs, right? So there's a whole bunch of those. We hear about those. They're not on here. This is infrastructure focused. First bullet is the CARES Act and the 2 previous acts, already money that's been rolling out in a variety of ways. But what's happening and what's coming? We're in the middle of USDA Reconnect Round 3. That's a generally bigger $25 to $50 million project pool, combined grants and loans, or loans only. It's complicated. It's a heavy uplift to go after. It's not for the faint of heart, but there is $1.15 billion. I've worked on Reconnect grants. So they are appropriate and useful in some circumstances.
Okay, Mark, we got to do this quick because we do have a presentation.
So what I learned from the USDA last week is they will not only run this round 3 in late next year, they will open up a round 4, another round of Reconnect. USDA, the Community Connect grants, $3-5 million range. They're opening that up for a new round, a funded round in April. NTIA Tribal, they closed $1 billion round September 1. They have $2 billion allocated from the infrastructure package. Expect that to open up early next year. And since the rules are already in place, that money should show up a lot sooner than other money. Treasury, Jeff will have to apply by December 27th for Arizona's $192 million, and that will create new state project and perhaps state grant opportunities. Then the big enchilada is the BEAD, Broadband Equity Access and Deployment, $42.5 billion in the infrastructure package. We haven't yet seen the formulas that would tell us how much Arizona gets. I still maintain that's likely to be in a $300 to $800 million range. Jeff mentioned the NTIA Middle Mile program. There'll be $1 billion there for federal grants for infrastructure that increases redundancy, reliability, and improves affordability in networks. And finally, at EDA, there's 6 active programs, all with different dates and different criteria underway. We've heard about those before, but I've tried to go to this format where there's the briefest of explanations and a useful link where practical to kind of summarize what is sometimes hard to get your mind around.
Mark, a couple things. We have already applied for the Treasury money that's due, I believe, the 27th, which is good. And they've accepted our application. I just went through a PowerPoint on what you're presenting this week. There's a lot of buckets with different functions, and a lot of the rules are still to be made. But it's silly money in the terms of just how much. A lot of it is competitive, and we're going to have to really work with folks, particularly our tribes, and some of our counties to apply for these funds. But good summary. Thank you.
And keep in mind that several of these programs require the use of new maps that aren't available yet. So some of the money, I believe the new NTIA tribal money, the NTIA middle mile money will roll out maybe in the first quarter, second quarter next year. But US Treasury and the big infrastructure money rely on new maps and will thus be likely delayed to sometime in the second half of next year. If you agree with that observation, Jeff.
Hey, Mark, I need to interrupt because we need to move on.
Great, I'm done.
Okay, so that information is available on, and I'll update as Mark has made some changes. I will update it, but that is available on our updates and events page. So I'll encourage you, and of course, a lot of this information will also be in the minutes of the meeting. So moving on, it's time for our presentation. We're running out of time here, so I apologize, but I did want to introduce, excuse me, Dominic. How do I pronounce your last name, Dominic?
Steve, it's Dominic Paluca.
Okay, Dominic is the senior manager. Is this correct? The senior manager of information technology and the strategic fiber program?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Dominic, if you have a presentation, I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to you to kind of give us an update. APS has been involved in broadband for many years, and it'd be good to get an update on what they're engaged with.
Thank you.
You're on, Dominic.
Yep, just trying to get my
Sure.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Yeah, good morning, Steve. Thank you for the invite, and Brian for assisting with getting me here. I appreciate it. Very exciting group, and happy to do the Google form, Steve, so I can work with folks to improve broadband. But yeah, as I said, this is Dominic Paluca. I'm the senior manager for strategic fiber for APS, and I'd just like to share with you all where we are with our program and the progress we've made to date and what we're doing for the future. So a quick agenda. I realize we're a little tight on time, so I'll be, I've got about 5 or 6 slides here, so I'll be fairly brief. Just talk about the fiber optic background, program overview, give you a construction update of what we've completed and what's coming up, and then existing fiber that we have that's available that we could share with folks. And then any questions, just please let me know. So from a fiber perspective, I mean, obviously, I think most folks here know how important fiber is, but from an APS perspective, fiber optic technologies is really our communication backbone that the transmission system relies upon for grid control and protective relaying and other critical grid functions. What we do for our installation is we go in, if you've ever seen the big transmission towers, and if you've noticed the very top wire, we call that the static wire, which really does 2 functions. One, it protects the conductors underneath from lightning. And also in the last, I would say 20, 30 years or so, they've come up with something called optical ground wire, which really means it's still a static wire. It still serves as lightning protection, but it also has fiber optic strands in the middle of it. So there's a stainless tube inside there that actually has the fiber strand. So we're able to, when we build a new transmission line, we're also able to install fiber, again, for grid control, primarily, and other corporate functions. In addition, what's nice is that we are able to install a higher count. When we look at the fiber installation and the investment, the majority of the cost is really the labor. So what we've done is we've gone with a higher strand count to serve not only our needs, but also make it available to the surplus available for third parties. And as I mentioned, it's it's a key part of the transmission effort. And we currently use a lot of microwave, and we will continue to do so. But as most folks know here, microwave technology is limited on the amount of bandwidth you can sustain on the path. And obviously, the further away the mountaintops are, for example, the less bandwidth that you can achieve. So we're excited to expand the fiber system. So what is the heart of the program? As I touched on it, we're building new fiber to stranded fiber islands. We had some fiber islands in northeastern and northern Arizona. So what we're doing with this program is, again, improving our grid resiliency and reliability, along with partnering with service providers to leverage the surplus capacity. And as you can see, and I have a map here that'll show you, but in more detail. But as you can see, we wanted to connect from our existing connection there, which extends from Phoenix north along. It doesn't really follow 17 directly, but it goes up through Black Canyon City, passes through Mayer, Prescott Valley, Chino Valley, and then on into Flag and the rest of the service. We're not a service provider. We don't provide bits and bytes, but again, we are able to provide the surplus capacity for carriers to then retail to those local communities that are either underserved or not served at all. So that's the exciting part here, is that we're able to serve in that capacity and provide another opportunity to support our customers. In addition, all of the leasing revenue is returned to our customers via the transmission cost adjuster. So this actually benefits the customers not only from a retail broadband perspective, but also helps support them and keeps costs down as well. From a construction update perspective, where we are at today, as I mentioned in the last slide, the black line there that goes up from Scottsdale heads west and heads on north, that was already in place. The path we completed this past summer, and we are finishing up a little piece in Scottsdale. The topmost portion here connected our Yavapai sub into Coconino sub. That's 53 miles. That work started in early 20. We did have some construction impediments with spotted owl and other things as you're going through the national forest, but we were able to finish that this past summer. And what we're doing is working on the other end of that, if you can see my cursor or not, but down here in Scottsdale, we are building into Iron Mountain Scottsdale, which is a data center which can act as the internet pop or internet drain for any connectivity that's in Flag. So we're excited to offer the Flagstaff connection, and we are in talks with several carriers to take advantage of that connection. So that's exciting. In addition, we have submitted our permit to the Tonto Forest, which will connect from Pinnacle Peak here up through Matazel and then on into Preacher Canyon, which surrounds Payson. And then we have fiber today that goes into Payson today. So that'll be exciting when we can get Payson lit up. And then we want to continue on towards the Chevelon Butte area. This piece was completed from Chevelon Butte to Troya, which is our Joseph City power plant. That piece was finished earlier this year, and we're wrapping up a few minor pieces on that job. That 35 miles in orange here was completed, as I said earlier this year as well. And that piece was done because that was private and state land, which has a more streamlined approach, less environmental impacts. As you can imagine, as you're going through the Tonto Forest, we have to make sure we dot the I's, cross the T's. We have environmental assessments and archaeological assessments, things like that. We're working very closely with the agency on facilitate that. Hope to, from again, Payson into Scottsdale, we hope to see a construction permit middle of next year to late next year. And then we're expecting a 4 to 6 month installation window to finish this 110 miles from the Chevelon Butte section all the way back into Scottsdale. So that's the goal. Again, working very closely with Tonto. We appreciate their support on that, and looking forward to finishing that piece. And then the final leg is Joseph City, heading back west to Coconino, back to Flagstaff. This would complete that ring, thereby providing a very resilient, I guess you would call it a very large middle mile type ring slash long haul ring there, which would provide that connectivity and redundancy from Phoenix into Flag and back to Joe City, and then obviously back down through Payson. So again, providing no single point of failure once complete, so that any carrier that would like to partake would have a very nice protected system that would again serve any community along the way with reliable broadband. And as I said, any single point of failure would not affect service in those markets. And one thing I'll add, because I've gotten this question before, from a take perspective or an option perspective, how do you, if you're a carrier, how do you attach? What's nice is you can either attach at the substations themselves or at a splice case, which is about every 3 miles, the fiber would come down the pole and have a splice case. So that's another potential meet me point for a carrier. So if you're looking at a smaller community along the way, again, maybe it's up through Mayer, maybe it's Prescott Valley, Prescott, Chino Valley, what have you. If there's a particular location that you're interested in, we can have a discussion and look at the nearest splice case so that you can then attach to that location and then build your lateral to there. I don't want to give the impression that the only meet me point is at the actual substation, because we can be a little more flexible than that. And then finally, on existing fiber, we do have an existing fiber footprint. We have about 2,600 route miles today total. A lot of that, though, is not available because there's limited surplus, especially in the metro area, just because of the legacy fiber that was installed back about 20 years ago or so. The thought was you wouldn't need more than 12 or 24 strands, which, in hindsight, of course, would like to increase that count, but it is what it is. So, but we are excited to be able to provide connections into Yuma, for example, Somerton, San Luis, and then I touched on Prescott and Chino Valley as well. So again, we, depending on the area, happy to have a discussion and talk about what we can offer in a particular area, again, from that surplus capacity perspective. So any questions? I went a little fast there just to stay on time, Steve. So happy to answer any questions. Let me take a look at the chat.
Thanks, Dominic. And again, I apologize that we ran a little late. So
no worries.
you getting through it pretty quickly. Questions for Dominic?
Dominic, Mark Goldstein, we've talked before.
Hi, Mark.
Glad to see APS open up its fiber kimono, if you will, and become this kind of partner to the communities. Mm-hmm. In the old days, you really didn't have that perspective or ability. I know I tried to deal with leasing of segments, and you wanted to a build of an alternate segment and an exchange of fiber and this and that. But it's, long story short, great to see you here at the table, bringing your fiber portfolio to bear. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Yep. Happy to
Dominic,
do it.
can you stop sharing, please?
Yes. Thank you, Steve.
You bet.
Hey, Dominic, this is Jeff. I just
Jeff.
want to say, number one, APS has been an incredible partner for the state from day one. Very, very collaborative, not just in this realm, but also working with us around information in some of these local markets you keep hearing about that are getting these very large fiber optic deals. A couple points I wanted to stress. Number one, redundancy. It is very difficult. The areas we're talking about, you talk about the route to Payson, you're going through U.S. Forest Service land. It's very difficult to get redundant routes built. And this is in addition to everything else that's there. It's physical route diversity. It's not in the ground. It's exactly what we need in these areas. You'll even see certain routes like I-17 and potentially I-40 coming up where the state may be building APS is on the same route. Those are too important to entrust to any one project. I think it's important that we continue down this path. I encourage all the carriers I work with to talk to Dominic to build that redundancy into their business plans and their funds. That way we don't have these issues. And then probably the last thing, and Dominic, I'm really disappointed you don't have a slide for this. My understanding, and this is one of the cooler things I've heard about, is a lot of this fiber is laid by helicopter. And I'm waiting for the video on that one. Just say that.
It's coming, Jeff. It's coming. Sorry, we haven't shown that yet, but yes, absolutely. The build for Payson will be helicopter pole setting and helicopter stringing. So we'll definitely get some good video for you. And certainly at the next discussion, we'll happy to share that.
Awesome.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hey, Dominic, this is Kirk Bush with Big Data Southwest. I echo what Jeff said. You guys are an amazing partner, have been in the data center side of things too, and just economic development in general. Quick question, and Jeff can chime in on this, because I'm trying to go back over my old notes. We talked about, Jeff, some kind of RFP coming for interconnect, maybe in the Flagstaff area, similar to what we have at 120 Van Buren. Maybe you two guys could talk about that.
You're talking about a construction of a new data center, Kurt, or?
I thought there was going to be a data center for interconnect, fiber and carriers.
Like a NAP, a network access point meeting.
Exactly.
Right. There's been some discussion. I will tell you that there's a lot of moving parts involved with that. You've got to get a lot of people to agree on a site, for one thing. We have had discussions with the city of Flagstaff. The Mayor Deasy's been very active in this space. I know that they have land at the airport. There's probably 3 or 4 sites people have talked about this. And obviously APS would be a key partner on that, not just from a broadband connectivity, but from an electricity. So definitely something I would like to see done up there. Unfortunately, we're very early in the process and we don't even have a site, but we could certainly use help if that's something you could help with.
Dominic, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I don't know about a data center, but as far as a NAP, I know I've talked to Derek, because again, as Jeff mentioned, we have complementary, the ADOT has a complementary build going up to 17. So I see that as an opportunity to provide that resiliency. So I think if you can build that nexus in Flag, and I think Derek has a few locations in mind, I think that as you get that critical mass, I think it lends itself to not only a NAP, but also future data centers in the area where it's close to that fiber and that redundant fiber. So I think there'll be more discussions to be had in the future, Kirk, on that.
And yeah, Jeff had mentioned one time too that somebody's actually looking to put a data center up in that neighborhood, but we just didn't have the fiber infrastructure. So I'm just curious as to.
We've had a couple different people have approached us. I believe even from a NAP, I think we need to make sure we don't go too small on these things.
Right.
An opportunity, God, this is going to date myself, but walked through the NAP of the Americas in Miami years ago when it was being built. And just a ridiculous amount of South American and Latin American internet traffic goes through there. Not to say that this is on that level, but I think if we're going to do this, much like Dominic had talked about the 24 fibers when this was originally built, let's make sure that it's big enough and it's in the right location that we can use this for expansion. Because I believe Flagstaff is a market that would, for a lot of reasons, could support something. There's some water issues, but other than that, it's got a lot of the key ingredients. And, working with a company who's willing to come in, or even at the state level, I'd love to see something done.
Yeah, from the water perspective too, when you're up in that neighborhood, you don't have near the cooling issues you do down here.
You're cutting out there.
From the water perspective, you don't have near the cooling issues up in that neighborhood that we have.
Correct.
Obviously down here in Phoenix, so that would be advantageous also, I think.
Okay, any other questions for Dominic? We need to wrap things up, but I do have a couple of things, a couple of announcements to talk about before we end today. So first of all, and Jeff, I haven't talked with you about this, but as you know, and you mentioned that you'll probably have your assistant director take a lead role in the digital inclusion. But there is a lot of money coming down. So I think that we're going to try to bring a group of folks together to begin that dialogue. It is not our intent that we are going to take on the responsibility of developing that plan, but just to begin the dialogue about what kinds of things people would like to see in a digital inclusion plan. So just wanted to let you know about that and let others know about that. Because as we know, that's really important money coming down the pipe. And the sooner we can get started on that dialogue, the better. So just a couple of other things. We are meeting next week. Again, That's going to be a really informal meeting. But again, I encourage you folks to participate. It's a good opportunity, particularly if you have a project that you're working on and you need something, you need some help, you have some questions or whatever, it's a good opportunity to do that. That meeting will be 10 minutes or it'll be an hour and 15, depending on how many people join, what kinds of questions and comments and so forth. So again, I encourage you to join us. Again, I know it's holiday time. We are not meeting on the 27th. We will meet again on January the 3rd. So in the meantime, two things. I wish you all, if you don't join us next week, I want to wish you all happy holidays. Please be careful. Please be safe. We look forward to all of you joining us next year. We will be looking at some different changes to the format and the agenda. I was hoping to have a leadership team, and I have to go back and look at the doodle poll. I hope to have a leadership team meeting this week. Not sure that that we have a consensus on a date yet, so I have to go back and look at that poll. But again, just want to thank you all. It's just phenomenal, the people who've been participating in this task force and the incredible kinds of things that you're all doing. So again, thank you all for participating. And again, if you don't join us next week, have a safe, happy holidays.
Hey, Steve, before everyone goes, just, we should all be thanking you. I mean, this is a group that was thrown together really in an ad hoc basis, has done some great work. And, your leadership on this and Mark with the information, and then, Henry and Oris getting the notes out. I know that sounds crazy. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a meeting and somebody quotes back the notes. Well, you said this in the AZBSN meeting. So people can read those. But thank you for everybody on the team for putting this on. I know I get a lot out of it, and I've met some really great people as well. So have an amazing holiday season for everybody. And hopefully we'll see everybody at the beginning of the year.
Sounds great.
Happy holidays, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian, for arranging to have a presentation for Dominic to be here today.
Sure.
Any other thoughts? Anything, just quickly, anything that people would like to see next year? I don't want to take a lot of time today, but any thoughts that people have for next year?
Have we considered what the effect of RDOF from last year is going to be to many of these projects, or how they integrate?
Rory, RDOF almost never comes up here, I'm afraid. Maybe that is a discussion we could have. RDOF was a reverse auction by which certain carriers, including Starlink for satellite, though that's troubled, bid on subsidies, essentially. That word almost never comes up in this meeting. I know what you're talking about, but I'm not sure most people here do.
Just to give you the bottom line, every single home that was registered with RDOF that was underserved was bid at 1 gigabit per second across the entire state, 150,000 homes. So there's a lot of overlap in what we do here and what's in the RDOF bids. Mm-hmm. There's multiple carriers involved, so I don't have all the details on their timelines, but it is definitely coming in a big way here. They had 4 years to deploy basically, and they had to be completed in 6.
Rory, I'm going to respectfully disagree. I tell people that RDOF reminds me of that movie War Dogs, where those two young guys bid on the DoD contracts after the Iraq invasion. I think we're going to have a very small percentage of RDOF deployments. I think that by and large, most folks are squatting on the spectrum. And we're not going to wait for RDOF. We're going to power through. I will tell you, around the country, there's a lot of push to get this done. So I hope that the folks that are doing RDOF, quite frankly, a lot of them are looking to have their company and / their contract sold. If those are sold to people who are going to get something done, I'm all for it. But otherwise, we got to move forward.
That's a good analysis. I know that we're deploying 1 gig wireless across the West Valley right now in advance of what we expect the RDOF money to come into. So, okay, understood. Thank you.
Any other quick questions or comments? If not, I think we're done for today. Again, those of you who want to hang online and kibitz for a while, we'll look forward to it. I'm going to stop the recording now, and